Okay, listen, okay. Welcome to Nuccio's Nurseries. I'm Tom Nuccio, and thank you for looking at this video. And anyway, we're going to keep social distance. I will dismask, so I'll keep my distance so you can hear me better and also see how ugly I am. So anyway, I brought a bunch of camellias up here to start off with, just to show you the various types and styles of camellias. Camellias are basically red, white, pink variegation, like various colors on the same plant. There's a few colors that we don't have, that we have a few things that are leading towards it. For example, yellow has been elusive in camellias. But anyway, let me show you a few different styles and stuff here. Most people, when they think of camellias, think of this style of flower. This is called formal double, with a perfectly symmetrical pattern like that. This particular variety is called Pink Perfection, and we sell as many of these for nostalgia as we do for the beauty of the flower. Because if you're raised in Southern California, your grandmother had one of these in her garden.
My mom has one of those.
Yeah, exactly. So we sell as many of these because I want to have it because I remember it as a kid. So Pink Perfection, but this is called Formal Double. And here's some other varieties that are Formal Double. This is Elizabeth Weaver, a nice pink. One we've developed here, this is Nuccio's Gem, and then Nuccio's Pearl is one of ours too, a light soft pink with a deeper edge to it. And then your original camellias are all single flowers, like this guy here. This is called Tamanoura, and this was found in the wild in Japan. Very typically, it'll have a border, and sometimes the border will even be broader. And this is another Japanese variety. This is called Shiranui, but here's examples of single flowers.
Is there any advantage for single double, or is this the preference of?
No, it's just a preference. You know, having you said that, sometimes some of the very double flowers will have difficulty opening, especially with bad weather. I know like some of the formals down by the coast, it's probably because of the moisture in the air, will have a tendency to abort and not open up properly. So sometimes the simpler the flower, in areas that are problematic, the simpler the flower, the less problem to open up. Okay. But it's a matter of, but basically it's a matter of choosing the flower that you like, basically. And then I brought a few others up there. These are semi-doubles, more petals than a single semi-double. This is Giulio Nuccio. This one's called Silver Waves.
And those are like almost like 6 inches?
Yeah, 5 to 6 inches. I mean, all semi-doubles don't get 5 to 6 inches. We have some that are small flowers as well. Think about camellias. You have all different size flowers. Here's a nice single here. It's called Tulip Time. And that's about as far as it opens up. It holds the tulip shape. Then over here, an unusual form, this is called an anemone. It's got a pom-pom in the middle and a row of petals on the outside.
Are those pom-poms really like stamens?
Or? Well, they're modified stamens. They call them petaloids, not real true petals. And if you look at them, there's stamens, there's the yellow stamens on them. Yeah, exactly. One of my favorite miniatures, this is called Tinsy. And it's an anemone form. What was nice about this, the color on the outside is different from the color on the inside. It's a nice white pom-pom and kind of a whitish pom-pom. But you can still see the stamens there. But yeah, those are actually stamens that got a little flag on them. So anemone form is what that's called. And just a difference in size too. You're asking about, these are big, but there's a lot of miniature camellias and medium sizes in between. This form is called a Peony Form, and it's like a pom-pom. And the particular variety is Mabel Bryan. And on the end over here is Kramer Supreme, which is a big flower. And then the other form is what they call Rose Form. Rose Form is a formal that keeps on going and opens up and shows a little bit of stamens. So anyway.
So there's like 2 main families of camellias?
Yeah, basically in horticulture, there's 2 big families of camellias, and actually 2 others, actually 4. Japonicas, when most people say camellias, they are thinking about japonicas. And that's what most people, if your grandmother had 10 camellias, they were all japonicas. The other type of camellia is called sasanqua, and they are fall blooming camellias. We were at our tail end, I had a hunt for a flower, but anyway, this is called Setsugeka, very simple flower, looks like a wild rose. And with sasanquas, you have a real wide range of growth habits. This is very fast and upright. Over here, again, down to the last flower, this is called Showa Supreme, a nice double pink flower. And this particular one is kind of low and moundy. So very different growth habits. Cleopatra, a nice single pink. And no flowers left to show you. A nice medium bushy one. This one here, 1 gallon, but very fast grower. This is called Narumigata. Has a nice little rosy red border on the petals, and very fast.
So talking about plant growth, which one would be ideal for bonsai? Bonsai has, like, I mean, there's two ideals. There's the aggressive growth, looking for the making thick trunks, and then we got the other one looking for Bratton structure. You know, which one?
Yeah, you know, for camellias, probably, if someone comes in and says, I want a camellia for bonsai, I typically recommend the ones that are fairly more compact, maybe a little slower growing, more branchy and bushy, as opposed to the real fast ones, because even though, you know, I don't know how long it would take to make a big trunk on a camellia doing bonsai, but I think for just the shape and bushiness, probably the little slower ones might be better. I brought one up here. It's called Hishikirihito. Nice compact plant. I wouldn't call it dwarf, but certainly on the slow side. But it's very bushy, compact, very pretty flower. It's Anemone Form. It's one of my favorite small flowers, but it's called Hishikirihito. And it buds up heavy as a young plant, which is kind of a nurseryman's dream. A lot of our fast growers don't bud up till they get a little bit older. But anyway, nice bushy plant, good foliage. But it'd be something like this that I would recommend. I'm not a bonsai guy, but if I was going to recommend something for bonsai, that's one that I would typically go to, as opposed to a real fast one. Maybe guys who do a lot of bonsai might take a fast one. Maybe they could think they could maybe get a bigger trunk sooner, faster, with an aggressive grower. I don't know, you know.
What's the climate like? What is the ideal growing situation for camellias?
You know, camellias, you know, we had a real hot summer this last summer. It was like Death Valley here at 118. They did not like that. But normally we'll break 100 every year here in Altadena. And they're not crazy about being in 100-degree weather. But certainly I would say 80s to the low 90s. I would say on the low side. They can go beyond freezing, lower than freezing, but you know, in the 30s, 40s at night, they like a temperature change. For example, in Florida, they can grow camellias in northern Florida, but they can't grow them in southern Florida. It's too tropical in southern Florida.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, I think someone says Loveland is the cutoff point for camellias, but it's just too tropical. They need some seasons. For example, in Hawaii, on the Big Island, with some elevation, you know, a couple thousand feet, they can grow camellias nicely because they have this cool nights and warmer days. So they like that seasonal change very much.
What's like a full sun? Because I know you're under like what,
Winter
30%?
shade. Yeah. Now basically this is an artificial situation, but basically most camellias need some shade or like some shade. Having said that, I've seen camellias grow where I would not recommend them, and they're still doing fine. But generally speaking, morning sun, late afternoon, filtered sun throughout the day. We recommend, for example, if you're going to be on the south side of your house or the west side, that it be a filtered south side or a filtered west side, not hot blazing on both conditions. Morning sun till 11 o'clock noon, we consider that a shade condition. Having said that, Sasanquas, these guys here, they're sometimes called sun camellias. These are probably our most sun tolerant of camellias. So we grow these for the most part in the full sun. If they have some shade, they appreciate it, but they can take full sun if they have to. So you got that kind of a range, you know. And then on the cold end of it, I think camellias can go probably nicely, depending upon the variety or species, into the low 20s, maybe high teens. You start going too low, then you start doing bud damage, and of course, real low, you start doing plant damage. I think there's been some hybridizing done with camellias, and they've got them a few varieties to go down to low 10s and even down to 0 with protection.
Well,
you know, but that's pushing the envelope though.
And then your growing media, that's controversial. Everybody has a different growing media. But what do you guys? Because I've seen some of your mother stock. They're healthy.
Yeah.
They're old.
Yeah.
So what do you guys? How do you guys treat?
Well, basically, our a recipe for just people in Southern California is half your native soil, assuming it's not clay. There's some places that have clay. You got to have good drainage with camellias. But basically, a well-drained soil, and most people have pretty good drained soil in Southern California. That and half peat mulch, you've got a nice mix, about half and half.
So what do you guys use in your potting?
Well, we'll go peat moss, some sand. We used to use a sandy loam, which we were only able to get. I wouldn't mind going back to sandy loam, but our sources, we had several sources and it wasn't sandy loam. One guy sent us a whole truck full of clay one time. It was terrible. So a little bit of sand and perlite.
perlite.
Yeah, it makes
For
it a little,
the-
it makes it a
for
little
the
lighter mix for drainage, and also a little, physically a little lighter, just for lifting the plants up, putting them in a truck to load them, hauling them off somewhere. You're not paying for a lot of weight or hauling a lot of weight around, you know.
So it's really a regular peat moss. It's really it's acidic soil.
Yeah, yeah, it acidifies the soil. And they're not, these are acid, quote, loving plants, but it doesn't have to be super acid, you know, just mildly acid, you know.
Awesome.
Yep.
Um,
Okay.
I think we covered most of them.
Yeah, there's a couple things over here I'll just mention about. One of the things that has been not found in communities very often are yellows. Well,
Why is that?
yeah. Well, because most of them are just pinks, whites,
Pinks
and
and reds.
right. No, but there are some wild yellow camellias coming out of China and Vietnam, and there's been some hybridizing done with them. And so far, the yellows are pale yellows. They're not deep, like taxi cab yellow. Yeah, this one is called Quicho. It's one of the more yellower hybrids.
So yellow, you're talking almost like butter yellow.
Yeah, exactly. As opposed to real bright yellow. Right, exactly. But anyway, but this is definitely not white, and it's definitely yellow. And so we have a few varieties of these. And the other thing with camellias, most people, the first time they see a camellia, they admire the flower. And the step number 2, what they do is put their nose to it. And most camellias don't even smell bad, zero, nothing, you know. And there's been an attempt to try to put fragrance into camellias. And one of the parents of a lot of the fragrant hybrids is called Camellia luchuensis. This is a wild camellia from the.
Does this sound familiar?
Yeah, well, it's from the islands around Okinawa, the Ryukyu Islands, and I think Okinawa itself has some of these on it. But they're fragrant. It's a tiny flower, and there's been some wonderful hybrids done with them. This one is called Kotonoko Ori. It's
I know our audience can't smell through the camera, but what would it smell like?
very perfumey, almost jasmine.
Okay.
Yeah, jasmine's stronger, but no, this has a nice jasmine smell. I'll have you smell and see what you think. Here, take a sniff.
Oh yeah, so, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Sasanquas, on the other hand, these guys here, Sasanquas have a scent, but it's very earthy. You might make a perfume out of this. No one's going to make a perfume out of Sasanquas. Sasanquas are almost like a compost, mushroomy. You know,
umami kind of smell.
Yeah, like just good, like good garden soil. You know, very not an unpleasant scent, but very earthy scent. But anyway, and then you can tell it's doing the hybridizing. Japanese are very happy with these simple single flowers, and they're using this with stuff like this, and they're getting things like this.
Okay.
Well, Westerners want to try and make them look like Texas, so far it's Nebraska size. But anyway, so this is called high fragrance. The guy who named it didn't stay awake thinking of a name. I got a feeling it got named by accident. I think this came out of, if I'm not mistaken, I want to say either Australia or New Zealand. I should know, and I don't. But the guy who was doing this, I believe his name is Findlay, and he was obviously trying to make fragrance camellias. And this one, he really hit the jackpot on this one. Really strong grower, good fragrance. The flaw of the variety, from a nurseryman standpoint, it does not want to bud up as a young plant. You just got to get older before it does anything.
The maturity.
But
age
yeah,
plays a big part.
Yeah, but it'd be fun to know how he came up with the name, other than it's highly fragrant. But I got a feeling that was just an identification tag, and he showed some friends, and some of his friends say, "Hey, how about that high fragrance thing you showed me last year?" And pretty soon, have you seen this high fragrance? And I think it's kind of a name that stuck. But anyway, very pretty flower, good fragrance, strong grower.
When's a good time to come out? I know.
Basically, we start seeing flowers on Sasanquas as early as mid to late October. But generally, we start seeing a lot of stuff after the first of the year. You know, sometimes late December, but January, February, March. March is on the way out, beyond the peak. But any time now, January, February, excellent time. Early March for camellias. It was good.
And I know you guys almost give a personal tour to every single customer. When's the best day to come out if you want to come out and kind of visit you?
Yeah, well, typically Sunday mornings are kind of quiet because everybody's everybody goes to church, has breakfast. By that time, the morning's half gone. So Sunday mornings is usually pretty good, and then mornings during the weekdays are pretty slow started sometimes. You know,
because I came on a Saturday and you guys were like 9 customers deep at that point.
Yeah. And of course, if you know what you want, you come in the summertime when nothing's in bloom. But there's not much fun in that, you know. So, But anyway, but Sunday morning is usually pretty good. Or the mornings are better than the afternoons typically.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I know we're going to take a quick tour of your mother stocks in the back. So
Sure.
you can actually see some of the rare varieties that you guys have that no one else has. I know you can buy at Lowe's, Home Depot, the big box stores, but you don't get to really see the varieties that you guys have.
Yeah.
And I think that's one huge advantage that you guys have compared to anybody else
Okay.
in the market.
But before we do that, there's a couple things right
Oh, yes,
here.
you
I'll
do.
show you. Sure. And I brought up a few unusual camellias. This is from Vietnam. It's called Amplexicalis. Look at the size of the leaf. I mean,
Wait a minute, camellias are part of the tea family, is that correct?
yeah, and I brought a tea plant up. This is the plant that you make tea out of. This is Camellia Sinensis. Little tiny white flowers, through blooming now, but it's about the same size flower, maybe a little bigger than the Nuccio, more rounder flower. But this is actually the plant from which tea is made of. It is called Camellia Sinensis. And then on the other side over here, I mean, this is to give you an example of the range of leaf sizes you get. And over here, we're talking about the various branches of the Camellia family. Reticulatas come from China, and there's been a lot of Reticulata japonica hybrids. And I brought up two plants of Frank Hauser and giant flowers. Now that big one there, that's a little bit below average. And this is, I almost didn't bring this up because it's almost too big. This is a little bit above average. You're not going to get them all that big, but certainly large like this and a little larger, maybe not quite this size here. But this is an example of the range of size you get on camellia flowers.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it is.
That is crazy. Ooh.
And then as long as we're here, we get some that have unusual foliages. This is a Sasanqua. It's called Hunadigen Benten Deep Pink Flower, and it's grown for the foliage. It's a foliage sport of Hunadigen, and this is called Hunadigen Benten.
So it is variegated.
It's a naturally variegated camellia. We have variegation in camellias comes two ways. Genetic, which sometimes is in the foliage, as well as the flower. Genetic would be stripes or borders. These are genetic variegations here. You know, this has got stripes, this has got a border, this has got a border, this has got a border. And then you've got viral variegation. This is a virus camellia.
How do you...
Well, who knows where the original virus came from, but how it's done on purpose. This is the parent plant. This is Giulio Nuccio, was named for our grandfather. This is Giulio Nuccio. And then it was grafted onto a virus rootstock. And then you introduce the white into the flower. So it's the same plant, same flower, but one's solid color and one is with the white blotches.
That's kind of interesting.
Yeah. It's not highly contagious. You can plant a non-virus camellia next to a virus camellia, and the non-virus one is not going to get virus because it's sitting there and stuff. I think in propagation is where we have some problems in transferring it. But anyway, back to the foliage. Besides the white blotches in the flower, you get some yellow blotching in the foliage as well.
Is that the virus?
That's the virus, yeah. As opposed to the genetic. Genetic has a pattern. The virus has no pattern.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the virus was, what's the vector for the virus? Do you guys know?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't. You know, it's there's more questions on virus than there's answers. Where it first started, but it's been done for hundreds of years using virus in camellias. There's certainly more than one type of virus, I'm convinced, because we've had some camellias that have gotten virus by accident. I think it's with our pruners and propagation. Here's my thought, and here's my feeling. And I think that if I cut this flower with my pruners, if I cut the virus flower with my pruners, let's call them dirty pruners, then I cut this camellia with the same pruners, is it possible to virus this plant? I won't say it's impossible, but I don't think it's going to likely happen. It's not going to happen on purpose very often. I think what happens if we took cuttings off of that plant and then took cuttings to propagate, I think it has a chance to travel into the cutting. And we've done a few virusing by accident in our propagation. So we make sure we either burn our tools or dip them in alcohol or do something. Yeah, but just for the home garden, picking a flower, bringing it in your house.
We're not propagating.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about it. Yeah, yeah. That's my opinion. There's a lot of people out there that might question that, which is okay. But that's my opinion of it. Anyway, we can take a look at our propagation, and we can show you some interesting stuff done and back, and we'll go from there.
Perfect.
Good. Okay.
So a cutting to a plant that's sellable takes about 5 years?
No. Cutting to a saleable plant, 2 years you got a small gallon. A 3-year-old gallon is a nice sized gallon,
So
ready
that's
to
really
move.
good.
Yeah, so about 3 years from a
so
cutting.
long.
In fact, right here, these are this year's cuttings. We just potted them up from the cutting flat, and they're just potting. These were camellias that we just rooted last summer.
Okay.
So these are not even a year old right now. By June they'll be a year old. Okay. They're putting in June as cuttings in a cutting flat, and now they're taking them out of the flat and potting them up, and they'll sit here till next year. Then we'll drop these in the gallon cans, and you got another growing season to make a nice gallon can.
And they're flowering. I see a couple are.
Yeah, I think because maybe the cutting had a potential bud on it when we took the cutting. Yeah,
Easy.
yeah. I doubt if the bud formed on that, but before I think the bud was formed before the cutting was taken. And then this, what we do some grafting. Most of our propagation is cutting grown, but we do some grafting. But grafting, you're not making a new plant. You're changing a plant over to something that you want. So you got to have a plant to make a plant. Cuttings, you're making a brand new plant. But the reason for grafting is that this plant, it should start growing by next month. These were done in around Christmas time. So by next month, they'll start to grow, and by fall, they'll be a saleable plant. It won't have any character. It'll be a skinny whip, but it'll be saleable.
Interesting. So, but that rootstock was one of the cuttings.
Yeah.
Correct? Okay.
Yeah. Now we do rootstock two ways. Most of our rootstock is cutting grown. We'll purposely over propagate about 10 really strong growing varieties that we use for rootstock. The surplus we'll use for rootstock. High fragrance. We sell a lot of high fragrance, but what we don't sell, we use for rootstock. And then the other thing is we grow a lot of seedlings. That's how we get our new varieties. Plant seeds and stand back and see what happens. You know, we don't do as much hands-on pollen hybridizing as we should. We do some, but not hardly
How
as.
long does it take from a wild
seed-
type, some seed to
blooming plant?
blooming, to
Yeah,
real
about 4 or
season?
5 years. It's not
Wow.
overnight.
And then it's like a whip too. It's still a little
It's
whip.
still a skinny whip, yeah. But about a 4 or 5 year plant. Now, a lot of the seedlings, the rejects, we'll use for grafting stock. We'll cut them off.
The stock,
Yeah,
the stock.
right.
And then the purpose of the mayonnaise jars, it looks like mayonnaise jars.
Oh, they are mayonnaise jars. Anyway, the purpose of the jar is like a baby glass house. Without this, they would dehydrate.
Okay.
So you got to keep them hydrated as a weed.
And how long do you keep them in here?
We'll keep them here until they start to grow. These come out of here probably by early summer. When they start to grow, we'll take them out of here.
Any advantage versus putting this in a big old greenhouse?
Greenhouse, you can do temperature control. We don't do any of that. You know, you could step up the heat a little bit and maybe push them along a little faster.
But this is almost individualized.
Yeah. And when they start to grow, we'll tilt the jar for 2 or 3 days till acclimate the graft. Yeah.
Perfect.
But anyway, these will be saleable next year. And the reasons why we graft, there are some camellias that we have to graft because they just don't want to grow on their own root. Most camellias, it doesn't matter if they're grafted or their own root. They'll grow just as well. But some camellias, they'll root, but they're kind of wimps on their own root. They're better with somebody else's root, so it's better grafted. And then if there's a gap in our cuttings, for example, let's say we're going to be 2 years without one variety, we can fill that gap by grafting for that following year. Have that variety available then.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And you were talking earlier that some Japanese would graft onto.
Back to bonsai. Yeah, really cool. I saw a couple of bonsai demonstrations in Japan. One was when they go and dig up an old root, because they have the luxury of having 300 or 400-year-old camellias growing on the mountainside behind their house, in Japan. So they'll dig up these old gnarly roots that have been around a rock for 200 years, take out a chunk of that root. They have a way to re-root that root, and then they'll graft onto that root on the top. So they'll have this gnarly root, and they'll graft onto it. It's usually something that's going to be more of a cascadey type of shape to it. And then I saw one guy that was doing mini bonsais. What he did, he took his seeds and he put them in a bag with some moist perlite, shook the bag up every now and then. But anyway, when these seeds grew, because he shook them all the time, they didn't know which end was up or down. And the seedlings grew cockeyed. And he'd pot them up in a little pot, and he'd graft onto them with a tiny camellia flower like that Luciensis you saw earlier, onto these already instant twisted trunk.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
See,
yeah,
so those are the techniques that we're going after
yeah,
versus the trunks that you. That's a great idea. I never knew you can graft back onto a rootstock that becomes a trunk line,
yeah,
which is a common practice. It is a common
yeah,
practice.
yeah,
But it's old school techniques.
yeah, yeah. Anyway, I'll show you the cuttings. We'll do our cuttings, okay? I'll turn the mist on. You can see what it looks like. Cuttings you can do under a jar the same way. If you got a handful of cuttings you want to try.
Look at the stack of mayonnaise jars they have. It's insane. Look at that.
But you can also do them under a mist system. You know, our best cutting wood. There you are. Okay, our best cutting wood is May and June when the next month in March they'll start to grow. And when it first grows, it's way too tender. But when it becomes firm, mature, that's our best cutting wood. And we take our cuttings about May, June.
So you're talking about the first year's growth, the green wood.
The green wood, yeah, as opposed to old wood, yeah, exactly.
Is this because it's more vital?
Well, I think the older it gets, the woodier it is, I think, and I think it's a little more tender growth. Not so tender that it's, that'll rot, but firming up. Green, I like my favorite cutting wood is green going to brown. A kind of transitional cutting wood. And all you really need is just one. They root at the cut. You don't need a special node or anything.
They root by the cut.
Yeah.
So they're not like Trinate maples where you'll have to go by the node.
No, not at all. Look, let me pull one out here. They root at the cut. There's a couple here that I'll tear them apart. No special node or anything, so they root at the cut.
Do you use a rooting hormone?
We've used rooting hormones in the past. We've tested them out. And for Camellias and Azaleas, we don't see the difference. The ones that are hard to root were hard to root. The ones that have been easier to root have been easier to root.
So you're on a commercial grade too, so
yeah.
So it could, if you were a home grower, would you even use a rooting hormone?
Well, we'll tell people on Camellias if you like doing it, it doesn't hurt to use it. But we haven't seen the difference. I did some tests sometime years ago. I did a test with easy to grow Camellias, easy to root Camellias, hard to root Camellias. I did a test with hormone, without hormone. About maybe 10 varieties, and the only difference I saw that on one of the varieties only, a few of the plants that had the hormone had a little nicer root system. That's it. Now whether that was coincidence or the hormone.
Nicer rooting.
Well, just a bigger
root mass.
A bigger root mass. Exactly right.
Well, maybe the hormones are just pushing the.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, but we didn't see it. It didn't make any difference for us. We think just good fresh cutting wood, and you do your cuttings, and you're done.
And what's your success rate?
Well, here you're looking at. We have some raw here. This is not so successful. Normally, I would say we're about 85%, huh?
Really?
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Like, I mean, this is Roy taking some, but that flat's pretty full, and we're in the process now of potting these up. And then we got this. We used to have our houses completely covered, and we had more rot problems when the houses were completely covered. And so we've gone to our sides are about halfway up, but it's open to air movement, and we have a mist system that goes on periodically during the day when they're being rooted.
And there's no heat pad. This is just
just pure.
On the ground?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Some guys use heat, and heat steps things along. Certainly, winter cuttings could use some heat. Winter cuttings are really slow to root without heat.
I'm just listening to other people, and some people use heat, and they found really good success with it.
Yes.
I've been playing with heat pads, and I found a lot of success with it.
Yeah.
But again, you guys are on a commercial.
Yeah, I think we do cuttings at the warmer time of year too. With these winter cuttings, you put them in the fall, winter cuttings, and they sit there till spring anyway because they kind of hold their own until it gets warmer. But anyway, let me turn the mist system on so you can see the mist system. Don't come in, you'll get your camera wet, okay? Well, we used to have a clock, a regular timer, and our timer broke. And someone said there was one guy that had this solar clock that we finally bought this solar clock from this one guy out in Canoga Park. and it's you set it up for X amount of solar units to go off. So in other words, we typically start off with, I think it's about 9 solar units, and a solar unit is in the middle of a hot, bright day. Not hot day, nothing to do with heat, but it has to do with sunlight.
Brightness.
A bright day is about 20 seconds. So it's about maybe, what's that, 3 minutes or 4 minutes, you know, or 12 minutes. Sometimes we go with 12 units maybe. That's about 4 minutes in the middle of the day. In the morning, in the afternoon, when the sun's lower, it takes longer to make a solar unit. On a cloudy day, it takes longer to make a solar unit. And then we leave the water on for about 30 seconds, more or less. What you want to do when the water comes on, you want the cuttings to get good and wet to make sure they stay hydrated. Then as they start to root, we'll start to increase the solar units so it stays off longer. But at the same time, we have to increase the time that the water stays on, because it takes longer to rehydrate the foliages, because the foliage is going to be drier. The longer the cuttings stay off, the drier the foliage is going to be. So we have to increase the time that the cuttings stay on. But anyway, and then at the end, we're just down to a lot of solar units, you know, and a good misting when it does go on, and then pretty soon we just shut them off. You get to a point with your cuttings, you'll have about most of them rooted, and a handful will not be rooted. Well, do you risk rotting the rooted ones to try to get the unrooted ones to rot? So it gets to a point we got to tell our cuttings, hey guys, make up your mind, because we're turning you off, you know. So anyway.
Interesting. So
Yeah.
and that's it. After that, just pot after pot.
Pot them up, and yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, so we put them in about June, and they had a good root system by September, October, and now we're just in the process of canning them up. Okay.
Let's look at some of your mother stock.
Yeah, sure.
Which is unusual.
Sure.
Let's look at some really unusual variety that no one else would have.
Yeah. You know, you can buy about, most growers have about 20, maybe 20, 10 to 20 camellias on hand, and those are good varieties, the ones you can buy. But you're going to find stuff here that you're not going to find anywhere else, just because your standard nursery cannot have 400 varieties, you know, and that's.
You have a variety that you don't have one available for sale. What would the turnaround time
Oh,
be?
typically if we don't have, if we're sold out, quite a few, to be honest with you, we've been really busy this year, and a lot of things we are sold out of this year. But typically, we'll have 1 gallons ready for the fall, typically.
So about a year turnaround time?
Yeah, you know, typically, put it this way, if you know what you want, you don't need to see the flowers. A crop is always at its best at the end of summer, beginning of fall, about September, October. And we've taken all summer to grow them, and they're going to be as big as they're going to be. They're going to have as many buds as they're going to get, because after October, if they don't have buds, they don't make any more buds. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so if you know what you want, you're going to get first pick in the late summer, early fall. Okay. Well,
This is Nuccio's back area.
yeah, let me show you a couple things here, as long as we're right here. This we named for our grandmother, Katie, but this is the variegated form of Katie. It's a nice bushy plant, really big flower.
Variegated?
We have it variegated and not variegated.
So is this a virus?
This is a virus.
Okay.
This is a virus, yeah.
Yeah. I'm seeing the difference now, because the blotchiness.
Yeah, it's an irregular pattern. What you want to see in a good virus camellia, a good variegated camellia, is about 40 to 60% white, and these are shown. And you get
that's a telltale sign.
That's a telltale sign, yeah. But it's quote a good disease. It's you know, there are some people who are against it because it is a disease, but it's but it's a nice tool. It's given us some wonderful camellias. In fact, I'll show you one here called W.P. Gilly.
Have you ever inoculated a yellow camellia?
We have not, because I don't think the virus. I haven't had the desire to do it because it's such a pale yellow. A white blotch on a pale yellow wouldn't show up very good. I wouldn't think. Yeah,
true.
Yeah. I mean, I could be proven wrong, but it just doesn't sound like it would be. You know. Anyway, this is an example. We think the variegated form is almost prettier than the plain form.
Okay, so that's
And this is called W.P. Gilly. Very fast, open plant. Makes a big plant, fast and very open.
So let's talk about the plant. So if bonsai-wise, this is an aggressive plant. So you're talking about the length. I mean, this is just
right.
all trunk.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. But anyway, I don't know if they would. The fast ones actually make a trunk better than the slow ones, but I don't know how much faster they would be for bonsai to do that. I just don't know. I have no idea on that.
Grow-wise, do they grow better, like atypical dominance on top, or they're more bottom dominant?
Oh, good question. You know what? I think because we're topping them, we constantly do a pruning job on camellias, as I used to, just to shape them up. So something that might be whippy, we don't let them get too whippy.
Oh, yeah.
We'll knock them back. So we force branching. Yeah. So, but I don't know. It's a good question.
Of course, you guys are propagating too, so that doesn't.
Right.
So here's his backstop here. I mean, he has tons of this stuff here. But
Well, let's see. This one here is called Unryu. No, this is called Igao corkscrew. No, Shibori Igao corkscrew. Igao corkscrew is without the variegation. This is the variegated form of it. It's hard to see this. If this
the
was
structure, but you can see the
yeah,
structure
with the
right there.
twisted corkscrew. I could show you some gallons that
Contorted. The
contorted.
contorted
Yeah,
variety.
yeah, exactly. Okay.
Oh, look at that. It's even contorted.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. And then here's one of the pale yellows here. Oh, that big one I showed you earlier, here's the variegated form of it. That really, I said it was almost too big to bring up to show you because it was just, but anyway, this is Frank Hauser variegated with the white blotches on it.
So, how old is this plant?
Oh, these are probably 5, 6 years old here.
So they're still pretty young.
Yeah. Not ancient, Some of these in here may be 7 years old, but 5 or 6 typically. Yeah.
How long do you usually kind of recycle them out? So when you
Well, this is where we keep stock plants. What we do on this here, we want to make sure we don't accidentally sell out of a variety by accident. We've done that before. If you want to drop a variety, it's one thing, but you don't want to. Hey, lady, come back with that plant. We want that plant out of your car because it's the last one. So we make sure that we have some backup on our material, which is basically down here. And once in a while, when we get a younger one, we'll replace this, sell these off, and bring the young one back in. Yeah, so we kind of revolve them. Yeah. Here's another contorted one too. This is upright. It's a simple single rosy red flower. I don't see, there might be a flower down here on the ground here. Here we go. Here's a flower. Here we go. This is called Unryu, and I'm told it means dragon, or flying dragon, or dragon in the clouds.
it's corkscrewed,
yeah,
and a contorted plant structure.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting. One year, on purpose, this tends to set a lot of seed, and we kept the seeds separate because I wanted to see if the seedlings would come up contorted. And most of them grew like arrow shafts, straight and narrow. A few were twisted, but most of them didn't follow the pattern.
So that's a recessive trait.
Right. Let's see what else. Well, there's a lot of things I could show you here. Wait a minute.
What are some of your favorites? Some of your dark
Oh,
some of the lightest. Some of the most unusual.
My goodness.
No, you have to talk about that maroon color one. I've never seen a camellia that dark.
Oh, yes, okay. There's a couple camellias that are this color. These are offspring of one called Kurosubaki, which translates in Japanese to black camellia. This is called black opal. And where Kurosubaki came from, I don't know, but a lot of these black camellias are coming from Kurosubaki. Look how dark that is.
It is so, even the stamens are red.
Yeah. Now, these are grafted plants. Once in a while, we'll do these on their own root.
Are they strong on their own root?
It's slow. It's kind of slow to. Let me see if this is grafted or not. Yeah, this is grafted. Otherwise, I would show you the roots on these. Camellia roots are kind of a creamy white. These guys are kind of pinkish. Even the root color is tinted.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, if they're on their own root. But anyway, Kurosubaki is the original plant. There's another one called Night Rider that's every bit as dark. Now this one is kind of stiff and bushy and compact. Night Rider is really loose and wispy, but every bit as dark. But what's interesting about the Kurosubaki seedlings is that the new growth in the springtime is almost the color of the flower, almost black foliage, pretty dark maroon foliage.
Almost like the crepe myrtle, the black diamond, or even the leaf and the trunk is almost that maroon color as the flowers.
Yeah.
Interesting.
There's wait a minute. Let's see what there's always something to show you here. Wait a minute.
So if I came in and I didn't know anything about camellias and said I want something that dark red with a border on it, and you probably have some.
Yeah, or something close to it, or dark red with white blotches, or something like that. You know, yeah, we can do something.
So someone doesn't know about anything about camellias, but says, "I'm darn, I saw this on TV. It was pink with variegated pink." Do you have something like that?
Yeah, we would.
So that's probably the easiest way,
Yeah.
probably.
Well, we ask people a couple of things when they put in a camellia. What is your exposure? And if it's going to be a lot of hot sun, then you're going to be somewhat limited as to what varieties you can use. And if you're too dark, they don't like it to be dark either. They got to have light to bud up.
Really?
Having said that, there's some that bud up tolerate heavy shade better than others. So we have some things where we say, well, give it a try, and if it doesn't work, then it's too dark for camellias. I'll show you one right now. It's called Taylor's Perfection. Very fast-growing camellia. Buds are very heavily, and it's one that we recommend sometimes. If people say, I don't know if it's too dark for a camellia, we say, well, try this, and this will be your test. If this doesn't bud up, it's too dark for camellias.
Interesting. Let's see that one.
Yeah.
And then I have a crazy question.
Sure.
Do you guys have an orange camellia?
Not, well, kind of. I'll show
wow.
you. Okay. We have a lot of orange reds. I'll show you some orange reds. And then I'll show you one that is orange. And it's kind of a hard one to grow. It's a wild camellia from China. It's called Camellia Azalea, which is a bit of a yeah, it's not, no, it's not. I'm told it's not good botany to use a botanical name to name another plant. And it's confusing. It's not an azalea, but the guy who named it thought it looked azalea-like.
Uh-huh.
And we should have been called, I guess I was told by a botanist, Azaleoides would have been the better way to have named it. But anyway, that's orange, and what's strange about that camellia, it's just totally different. All camellias, to some extent, have serration on the leaves, little sawtooth.
Sawtooth on the
all camellias, yeah. Some is real noticeable, some is just mild like this here.
Which is one of the characteristics of a camellia.
Of camellias, except Camellia Azalea has no serration at all, so it's weird that way. Camellias set their buds on the new growth. This year's new growth is next year's flowers. Okay, so the new growth on camellias it sets the buds. Okay, the buds are set. They'll be set by late summer, early fall, and they bloom when they're good and well ready to bloom. The late camellias are just starting to bloom. The early camellias started back in, say, late November, December. Now, Camellia Azalea, it grows, sets buds, and they bloom. They start in July. So completely different blooming. I'm telling you,
They bloom on the same growth.
Well, the new growth, which is your budwood.
Yeah.
But a budwood on a regular camellia, the buds set, they form, they sit there, they don't open up till next winter or fall.
Like most fruiting trees.
Yeah. Well, anyway, Camellia Azalea grows, sets their buds,
and then open.
They open up right away. They don't wait till. Yeah. So it's basically the biggest bloom we have on this is July to December. But having said that, we've had some Camellia Azalea flowers with a flower tooth throughout the year. In China, they're using it for hybridizing. They've gotten a few summer blooming camellias with japonicas crossed into it. Let me show you the orange camellia. Let me show you orangey reds first. We're calling orange, as opposed to blue reds.
Because the most common ones are the pinks, the reds, the whites.
Yeah. There's a real nice one over here called.
That's the reason I said you have an orange one, because I'm like, huh.
Well, yeah. Let me show you what we call orange. I've been calling it orange. It's more like orange reds as to blue reds.
It's almost like you're asking for a blue flower.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible.
Right. Here we go. Now here. Okay, this is called Fire Dance. We consider this to be an orange red, not a blue red.
That's okay. So it's more red. It's like a dark red.
Yeah, and then I'll show you the variegated form of this is also a knockout. Watch your head through here.
Again, you come down and buy some plants, you might get a private plant someday.
Okay, this is Fire Dance variegated, which is the variegation is really showy.
Oh wow, look at that.
Yeah, so where we get a good red flower, we purposely graft onto a known virus rootstock, hopefully to end up with something like this.
It's almost like a tie-dye t-shirt.
Yeah, it doesn't always work. Sometimes we get enough white to wreck a good red flower. But anyway, Fire Dance variegated. Now, I think over here there might be a few flowers of that Camellia Azalea. And I see some buds. I'm not seeing any open flowers though.
Is that that spindly thing in the back there.
Yeah.
That is kind of orange.
Yeah.
It's not like a true orange, it's like a red.
No, it's not like an orange, like a tangerine, like a fruit, but that is definitely,
An orange color.
yeah, yeah,
That's interesting.
yeah. But look, no serration
Oh,
at all.
That's right. There's no serration.
Yeah, very different camellia. So that's probably the oranges that we have in camellias.
So orange is really out of the spectrum technically.
Yeah, yeah. We're talking about orange reds, not like looking like a tangerine or like when you pick an orange, the color, the skin of an orange. No, nothing like that yet.
And your smallest, talking about bonsai,
Okay, we got a number of species with tiny flowers.
and leaves at the same time.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's one called Minutiflora, but there's a number of them, and there's just a few that have pink flowers. Most of the small flowers tend to be white in the wild forms.
I got tiny gems. Is it tiny gems? Yes.
Yeah, tiny gems. It's a tiny flower and very compact plant.
I have one. I got two of those, and those are great. I mean,
Yeah, slow
they're
growing.
really slow. I mean,
They're slow. They're slow. You know, for a slow plant, a lot of slow plants are kind of wimpy. It's a pretty strong plant. We don't have.
It
We
pushed
don't
out
have.
a good. I mean, it went from a I think it was a 4-inch pot to a gallon. It looks like a gallon.
Yeah, right.
Within a season and two.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
pretty
It's not a wimpy plant, which
No.
is good, you know. But that'd be one of the smaller flowers right there. There's one called Elena Cascade, beautiful cascadey plant.
Okay,
Let's go take. We gotta take a look.
let's end the video there.
Okay.
because I think I want people to come down and just really, if you know what you want, I think just ask Tom or Jim on a good day. I think you might get what you want.
And on a bad day, you might not, right?
Oh, that day might be. Come back next another day. We're busy.
Okay.
No, I don't think big box stores will have this kind of stuff.
No, you know, and they just. Oh yeah, I mean they can't. I mean, like I say, they. And like your big nurseries, they do a good job. The big nurseries and stuff, you know, like the Armstrongs and them, and they have a lot of material, but they cannot. You just can't have everything if you have a lot of material. You can't have every variety of everything, you know. You can't have vegetables and seeds and every.
50 varieties of
You know, plants are just plants. Yeah, no, you can't do it. Yeah, that's why we don't have seeds and everything else. Anyway, and hopefully this has a flower too on it.
Cascadia.
Yeah, and I don't know the parentage of this. I should try to look it up. Someone asked me about it today, and I didn't know it off the top of my head.
So Tom and Jim have his website. I'm gonna put that in the description.
Yeah, you know.
They do mail through the continental United States, but you may not mail to Europe. Is that correct?
No, we can't go. Yeah, foreign countries have really cut down. It's been harder and harder to ship camellias out of the country, and every foreign country has their regulations. So if you're requiring from a foreign country, check with your country as to what the regulations are. And sometimes they have regulations that we cannot meet. Our Department of Agriculture cannot sign a phytosanitary certificate because we can't meet those regulations.
So can you send to Hawaii, Alaska?
Hawaii we can ship to. We have to bear route to Hawaii. We don't have to. We used to have to bear route to the southern states. The southern states no longer require us to bear route. They do require a phytosanitary certificate to go into those states, but we don't. We have to bear route to. We used to have to bear route to all the south, and we don't have to do that anymore. But Hawaii is the only state that requires us to bear route, and bare rooting you want to do before they start to grow. You know, you don't want to have a. We have bare rooted in the summertime. Somebody absolutely wants something, and we've done it successfully. When the plants are growing, it's not the best time to bare root. You want to do it when they're dormant. And kind of funny.
What is a dormancy?
Well, ironically, camellias are dormant when they're in bloom. It's kind of goofy.
They're dormant when they're in
In bloom, yeah. They're dormant in the fact that they're not growing.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not the growing season. They bloom when they're dormant. It's kind of goofy, but yeah. Anyway, if there's Elena Cascade is not here. Yeah. There it is here, real drippy plant.
Oh, wow, that's really
A pretty little reddish bud, and I'm not going to show you a flower.
Because it's not in bloom.
Because it's not in bloom yet, yeah. Yeah, really pretty tiny white flower, but very drippy, wispy plant.
And this is what, my guess, about 5-6 years old?
Nah, this is more like 7 or 8. These are older here.
That's not bad.
No,
For
no.
For that size. Look how big that is.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure, I think we're sold out of this one, so don't ask for this one this year. Next fall we'll have some of these, for example.
So if I want to come down and I know the type of flower or the
If you know what
structure-
you want, yeah, the fall is the best. They haven't been picked over yet. You can't see anything, you just see greenery. But if you know what you want, you say you don't want it, Leonite Cascade, we're going to have it or we're not going to have it. It's going to be as big as it's going to get. And yeah.
And then call ahead or.
Well, if you know you want
internet.
something, you can call to see if we have what you want. Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Yeah.
And then your phone number. I presume calling you guys are the best.
Sure, yeah. Yeah.
All right.
And we still don't take credit cards, so check or cash.
And then your operation date, just in case.
Yeah, we're always closed Wednesday and Thursday. The hours are 8 o'clock to 4:30. If it rains, we button up early typically. So if it's a rainy day, make sure we're going to be here till 4:30. But normally it's 8 o'clock to 4:30, closed Wednesday and Thursday.
Perfect. And I'll put the description in the. I'll put the information in the description below. If you guys like it, hit the like button. And I'll probably come one more time when you guys doing your grafting, not grafting, your
Cuttings?
Your cutting.
Oh, sure.
Just show people your kind of your production. What you guys do here.
Sure.
All
Okay,
right.
sounds good.
Thanks
Okay.
a lot, Tom.
Tom, thank you, Tom, very much too. And thank you everybody for listening, and thank you very much. And happy Camellias to all you guys. Okay, thank you.